Daniel Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the 2023 Music City Bowl matchup between the Auburn Tigers and the Maryland Terrapins. Two teams that have had good seasons getting to this point. Auburn 6-6 overall. This is a team that's definitely shown potential over the course of the season. They've had some good performances, but they've definitely been inconsistent. This is also a team that's coming off a game where they almost beat Alabama, and they're taking on Maryland 7-5 on the season. Maryland's also shown promise this season, but they've taken several close losses. Either way, a competitive matchup coming up here in the Music City Bowl. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today. Let's get started with their team trends. Auburn lost to Alabama 24-27 to finish out the regular season. Just a brutal loss there for Auburn. That's the game that the Tigers really should have won. It took Alabama a miracle in the end, and they found a way. But for Auburn to be 6-6 heading into bowl season, I feel like this is a team that really could have been a 7 or even 8-win team this year. It just was a roller coaster of a season. They started the season 3-0, then they lost 4 straight, and then won 3 in a row again over Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas. All 3 of those pretty dominant wins, and then a very disappointing loss to New Mexico State, and then lost to Alabama in the way that they did. I mean, I feel like this team could have been an 8-win team this season, given the talent of this team as well. So maybe a slight disappointment of a season for Auburn, but still a 6-6 team, and they got to a bowl game at least. And for Maryland, kind of in a similar situation, Auburn, I feel like the Terps are a team that's got some pretty good experience. And overall, for Maryland to go and get only 7 wins this season, maybe a bit disappointing for them as well, considering they start out the season 5-0 as well. But they beat Rutgers 42-24 to finish out the regular season. Rutgers not a bad team this season, so an impressive win there for the Terps to finish out the regular season. Games be on Saturday the 30th in Nashville. Kickoff is 2 p.m. Eastern. Spread's going Auburn by 6.5 here, so the Tigers are a halfway decent favorite, which makes sense when you consider Maryland is without their standout quarterback in Talia Tagovailoa, who it sounds like he is headed to the NFL draft, so it's up to Billy Edwards now for the Terps, who really doesn't have much experience. So that is obviously a bit of a question mark, is this offense now for Maryland. But overall for Auburn, they've got most all of their key talent in this matchup, which is something you got to look for in bowl season now with all the players leaving to the transfer portal and the NFL draft and everything. But over-under is 47.5. FPI is going Auburn on the slightly 52%. You look at bowl history. Auburn is 24-20 overall. This team hasn't had much success in bowl season in recent time. They obviously missed last year, but they've lost 3 straight bowl games. Last time this team won a game was back in 2018, where they took on Purdue in the Music City Bowl, beat them 63-14. So a really dominant win the last time this team was in bowl season. No, but you consider the last time this team was actually in a bowl game, it would have been the Birmingham Bowl back in 2021, where they lost to Houston 17-13. But as for Maryland, this team has won their last 2 games. They were in what would have been the Duke's Mayo Bowl last season against NC State, beat them 16-12. And this is their 3rd straight bowl game as well. There was a gap between 2017 and 2020 where this team didn't make a bowl game, but the past couple of years this team has. They were 13-14 overall. Your stat comparison: Auburn 68th in points per game, 31st in points allowed. Defensively, this is a pretty strong team overall. Their offense isn't bad, especially in the backfield. That's the main strength for this team, being 16th in the country in rush yards a game. The passing game, though, not so much. 126th in pass yards a game this season. Peyton Thorne, the Michigan State transfer, hasn't been as good as many were expecting. Of course, he was really good with Michigan State when he played, but it just hasn't been the same with the Tigers this season. So we'll see if he can get back on track here. But overall, the backfield, the main strength for Auburn this season, without a doubt. You look at Maryland, 50th in points per game, 54th in points allowed. Overall, this is a pretty balanced team here in Maryland as well. They're 21st in pass yards a game, but obviously that's going to be a little bit different, having Tagovailoa not in this matchup, who overall has been impressive this season. 3,400 yards, 25 touchdowns, 11 picks. He throws more interceptions than you would like him to, that's for sure. He turns over the ball a bit too much, and that was something that we were obviously looking at in Tagovailoa heading into this season, as if he could fix up his turnover issue. It just really hasn't this season. So, but either way, he's gone in this matchup. He's not even going to be playing, but it's up to Billy Edwards instead. So we'll see what he can do, and maybe for the future of Maryland as well. In the backfield, not quite as strong for the Terps, 115th there. But this is a strong team against the run, 32nd in rush defense. That's obviously going to be important going up against a run-heavy Auburn offense. Your recent matchups: Tigers lost to Alabama 24-27, lost to Mexico State 10-31. That loss was obviously not a very good look. New Mexico State was actually halfway decent this season, but I feel like everybody's so used to them being just awful to the point where seeing Auburn lose to New Mexico State like that is just really confusing. But I mean, either way, that was just a game where Auburn just did not show up, and just a bad game for this team. But at least the next week they put up, I would still say, an impressive performance against Alabama. I mean, they were that close to beating the Tide there. I mean, that would have been, we'd be talking about Auburn a whole lot different right now if they were to have beaten Alabama. And obviously that would have shifted the college football playoff. And I mean, you just think about that last play of that Auburn-Alabama game, and if it just went the other way, a lot of things would be different right now. But beat Arkansas 48-10, dominant win there on the road. Beat Vanderbilt as well, 31-15. Also took care of Mississippi State 27-13. As for Maryland, beat Rutgers 42-24, lost to Michigan by a touchdown. This team hung in there against Michigan, who's now the #1 team in the college football playoff. Beat Nebraska on the road 13-10, lost to Penn State 15-51. That one was ugly. And then a close loss against Northwestern 33-27. So few close losses for Maryland this season. 7-5, kind of a disappointment for the Terps this year overall. But this is still a team that's definitely talented. I'd say that about both teams here. Your key points: Tigers are 6-6. Peyton Thorne facing a familiar team as well. You consider he was at Michigan State the past couple of years, and obviously he played Maryland, with them being in the same division there in the Big Ten. So this is a familiar opponent here for Peyton Thorne, and so that's something that's an interesting storyline. The Tigers are definitely strongest, though, in the backfield. That's really where this Auburn offense shines. You got Jaquez Hunter, who's really had an impressive season with nearly 900 rush yards and 7 touchdowns. Keep an eye on him. And overall, the backfield it's got some depth as well for Auburn. And this is a team that I would say has a high ceiling, but they're definitely inconsistent. We saw this team's dominance in those 3 wins down the stretch, but there were a couple of games that were definitely confusing. They hung in there against Ole Miss, put up an impressive performance there, also hung in there against Georgia, and obviously against Alabama. So this team is 6-6. I would say they're better than the record shows, despite obviously being a 6-loss team. But for Maryland, Tagovailoa gone, so it's up to Billy Edwards. And I would say, I mean, the offense at least had some consistency with having a solid quarterback in there this season, but that's not going to be there in this matchup. We really don't know much about Billy Edwards, and that's why it's been so tough to predict some of these bowl games this season, is because of a lot of quarterbacks that we just don't know very much of playing. But so we'll get to see Billy Edwards in this offense, and it is an area of uncertainty, I would say, now for the Terps, especially with this team not being able to rely on the backfield very much. I mean, you got Roman Hemby, who's been solid this season, but otherwise just not very much in that backfield. So I would say for Maryland, playing a strong defensive game is going to be critical. Forcing turnovers, maybe getting some defensive points as well somehow, or even on special teams. That could really go a long way for Maryland in this matchup. I feel like if Auburn scores a lot of points, it could be a challenge for Maryland to keep up, especially going up against a pretty strong Auburn defense. So for Maryland, got to keep it as low scoring as possible. And for Auburn, if you can score up to 30 points in this matchup, you probably got to win. So definitely a lot of factors on both sides. But with that, let's get the prediction here for Auburn and Maryland. Coming up here in the Music City Bowl, in the end, I'm going with the favorite here, going Tigers 24-17. I think that Peyton Thorne and this offense, they're going to find a way in this matchup. I feel like, I mean, once again, you consider how competitive Auburn's been this season, maybe outside of that New Mexico State game. This has been a pretty solid team this season that's just taken a few brutal losses against good teams. And I feel like Auburn as well, retaining most of their key talent is going to be a big factor. Maryland, not as much. Obviously, not having Talia in this matchup is something you got to look out for. And so it will be tougher for Maryland to score points in this one. I think they find a way to put up 17. Even for Auburn, it could be tough going up against Maryland defense that has shown to be impressive at points this season. The defense has especially been inconsistent for the Terps this season, but I think Auburn finds a way. I'm taking them 55%. Honestly, could go 60% here. I'm taking the under. I think this is more of a defensive, low-scoring matchup in Auburn to cover the spread in the end. But with that, let me know your thoughts and comments below on this matchup. Music City Bowl, your score predictions, all of that. My name's Evan. This is All Sports Central. Stay tuned for more. We'll catch you on the next one.